Expenditure Committee. Councilor Soap, would you offer to start?
Please stand. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, creator of all things, we come to you this afternoon. We just thank you for the many blessings you bestow on each of our families, Lord. Just pray that you be with those that need you, Lord, those that need the healing touch. We just thank you for all the people that are focused on the things that they need to be focused on, like family for the holidays, Lord. Just pray that you be with those that are in need out there in our nation, Lord. Just be with our soldiers overseas, help them to get past the holidays and help them to have a good heart, Lord. Just be with them, keep them full of joy, and help them to be content until their duty. So that's the same Jesus' name. Amen.
Next, we have roll call.
Julia Coates. Here. Don Garvin.
Aye.
Bill Anglin.
Here.
Bill John Baker. Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzard.
Here.
Bradley Cobb.
Aye.
Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk. Meredith Fraley. Here. Janelle Fulbright. Chuck Huston Jr. Tyler Glory Jordan. Present. Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Stokes.
Here.
David Thornton. Kara Callan Watts.
Honey.
We do have a quorum.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes from November 22nd meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will move on to reports. And first, we have Career Services. Diane Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have my report before you on both rehab, Job Corps, vocational training. Let's see what else. Oh, those it. Are there any questions regarding any of those programs?
Are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
That was new and different for Diane. And next we have the group leaders report and Melanie Knight. Thank you.
I'm not as talented as Diane Kelly. I probably won't be able to pull that one off. You all have our written reports, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. We do have a long list of items from last committee that we continue to follow up on with many of you individually. So those items many of them are still in progress. So if you have any questions about the reports, I can address those first.
Councilor Fishinghawk.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on a response on the thing Bill John asked about 3 months ago, and I'm supposing it's ready about the state compact, whether we're in violation of it.
Okay, the one that, the first one, the one that Bill John asked about,
Several months ago.
which was the KU program, or a different,
The what?
which question was that?
The motor
Bill John, would you-
vehicles.
Would you phrase your question again?
For the motor fuels.
Maybe we're talking about the at-large scholarships
Okay.
going outside, and I think the question was, are we using motor fuel tax dollars for that? And if so, would that be in conflict?
Okay.
And
Yes. I answered the first part of that by email. We had not been using motor fuels to fund at-large scholarships. We've been using BIA funds, and then when the scholarships increased to be the same as non-Pell, we began using Gen Fund to supplement that, but Gen Fund not specifically motor fuels at that time. Now the budget AUs have been combined for FY 11, so I guess you could say that we are commingling those funds for the purposes of scholarships for FY 11. So the question may be relevant this year.
which brings me to another question.
Yes.
See, I thought that the BIA funds that we had were only for the 14 counties. I mean, I don't think that we could use those outside because before we ever supplemented anything. I was thinking that the BIA funds, when we took that over from the federal government, I thought it was specific to the 14 counties.
In higher ed, it was unique, and it really was a unique program for all tribes. That the program typically began as a program that served only your citizens or members from that tribe, but it did not restrict with regard to residents. So you could serve your members wherever they were, and you didn't have to serve all tribes in your jurisdiction, but it it wasn't bound by residents. And that's the way our program, as far as we can tell, all the records show us that that's the way ours started in 1983. Jennifer also went back and talked to Gloria Sly and some folks that were here at that time to confirm that was the case.
And you might be right, because we had a finite amount of money, and the scholarships got down to $200.
Yes, they got down so low because we were just
And we
distributing.
were serving nobody outside the 14 counties, and they were still down to $200.
Yeah, we put at some point in the program, we put a preference on the at-home.
14 counties,
Citizens.
state of Oklahoma,
Right.
yes, I
Right.
recall that. But
Yeah.
the dollars were so few that it started out $750, $500, $400, $200.
Right. It just
Okay.
got lower and lower, and so we decided to start supplementing also. The question about the spending of,
Ms. Kelly, did you have something to
I
add
was
to
just
this
going to
also?
say that at one point in time, way back, I think it was in the late 80s, there was a lawsuit that was filed by a student out in California that opened the gates for that to go outside the 14 counties. That's how that came about. And that's why it's not within the 14 counties. It was just higher ed.
to follow up on the second part of the question about spending motor fuels monies for scholarships, that may be relevant this fiscal year because we've combined all that into one AU. I believe Councilor Fishing Hawk has submitted that question to the AG's office, and it's my understanding she's taking it up, so I would defer that to the AG with the legal question.
Okay. My next question is, you wasn't here last month, but I talked to two people that I knew was on the CHIPS program, and they said they never received a call that their contract was not going to be renewed.
Okay, well, we took that input from the last meeting and wanted to make sure everyone got properly notified. So a letter should have gone out from Donna to each of those CHIPS recipients, and I think this is just in the past week, so I don't know that they've all received them. But because we want to, one, thank them for their service, two, let them know that we're not going to be using the volunteers this year, formally, let them know formally. And three, we want to have an event to thank them for their service. So that letter notifies them of all of
So
it.
when was the last work day?
I believe it would have been the end of the fiscal year. I don't think
September?
that-
So you all just now sent them a letter?
Yes.
That
Donna
everybody should know,
said-
Because you sit here in this committee in September and said that you all knew they was going to be used, and you all would send them a letter, and September 30th coming out, and you didn't do it in October and November, and this is December. And that's why it irritates.
Well, I know that I said that they had been notified, and I think they had been verbally notified. Now, I don't know how consistent we were about that. Did someone not get the message? That could have happened, because verbal notification is fallible. So that's why we wanted to follow up with this letter, especially after your comments in the last committee meeting that there may have been some that weren't made properly aware. So.
Well, I don't think 3 months is a decent amount of time to inform somebody. And I hated that was our employee, and I hated that y'all chose to do it that way, because to me, it was y'all's choice to do it that way, not the council, and especially not mine when it comes to somebody's job. Thank you.
Councilor Rosen?
Melanie, I think, and you may have told me the last time, but when are we going to make those awards for those motor vehicle tax commissions?
We've received 27 applications.
You got 27,
Mhm.
okay.
We got 27 in, the deadline just closed, and we have two panels of people, both internally, externally, members of those panels reviewing those applications, and we have a date set for the 15th for the deadline for each of us to have read them, scored them, and sending our input back in. And this year, I wanted to be involved in the process this year just because it's new, and to make sure it continues on a good track. So that's where we are. We hope to announce the awards in December.
Oh, this month?
Yeah, exactly, so that they can begin them soon after the beginning of the fiscal year.
If you would, when you make those awards, would you send me the list of the awardees?
Certainly.
I appreciate it.
And in fact, I think it would be good to send it
To
to
send it all,
the entire
yeah.
council so that everyone knows
Okay.
who the successful awardees are.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Watts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, just thank you for working. I look forward to working with you on the STEM and the college prep stuff. And I think you're going to bring me that date in January, maybe.
Yes.
So, I have a community meeting on Thursday, so I want to be able to answer questions. Can you remind me of, in general, what our scholarship kind of? Will they get it in January or February or March? Do we anticipate? I guess we can't get it in January because we haven't approved it. But when do we anticipate that we would have the applications out?
Okay.
And then it would be still probably a June deadline, right? So
That's what we're anticipating.
I'm already forewarning there, we anticipate changes.
Yes, and that's what I'd hope we talk about also today, is that I'm prepared to go through the policy changes that we're making in the scholarship program, with the intention that we would announce them in January, notify all of the existing students, and that we would have applications open again as we typically do, March 1, with an application period from about March 1 to what's about the second week in June each year. So that gives them that period of time to apply. The changes wouldn't become effective until the fall, of course, semester. So everyone's still on the same track for spring, and then we would implement those changes come fall. So I'm ready to talk about that if y'all are prepared to talk about that now.
Counselor Jordan first. Or
Yeah, I want to hear what the changes are, and they're just in policy. It's not something that the council's had an opportunity to vote on.
It's not been legislated in the past. It's been done by policy. Of course, this committee has had a lot of recommendations over the years that have been implemented as far as policy, so I look forward to your input today. And many of these things we've been talking about since the budget hearing, so I don't think you're going to hear much new from me about the types of things we were looking at then, the types of things we're looking at today. So I'm ready to hand that out and talk about it.
Counselor Hoskin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If a student applied in the fall and there was some defect in their application, it was untimely, lacked documentation, and they weren't approved, if they're a continuing student in the spring, is there a chance they could get funding, or is it basically they're out for the year because of...
Under our present policy, they've been out for the year because we haven't had 2 opportunities to apply, and that's something that I want to change.
Okay.
It presents a difficulty in that, in terms of budget planning, being able to accept new students for the spring semester. But I think it's something that we should and it's something we should do, because a lot of students don't begin until spring and they don't have any opportunity to apply until the next school year. So something we're looking at, and we'd like to start that with the next cycle.
Meaning the next scholarship cycle, not this spring.
Exactly, because we haven't planned for that budgetarily, so I'm not sure that we could do it this spring.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
Okay.
We will policy
Ready
changes.
to talk
yes.
about the policy elements? I handed out a bulleted list just so that we could go through them and make sure to hit all of the major areas of focus that I thought you would be interested in. Of course, only citizens are eligible for our scholarship. We have not had recently a minimum GPA for students, and we're working on a 2.5 minimum GPA for undergrad, 3.0 for graduate students. They would have an opportunity, if they ever dip below the GPA requirement, to be on probation 1 semester and have the ability to bring up their grades and continue on in the program. If they're unable to do that, they can continue to go to school on their own and raise their GPA and come back and apply when they can meet the minimum GPA requirements. Another thing about GPA that I want to note is that we talked about high school students and minimum GPA. While we would have a minimum 2.5 GPA also for high school students, if a high school student cannot meet the minimum, we would accept them for that first semester and also put them on probation, allowing them the opportunity to continue or to perform their first semester as a college student at 2.5 or above. And if they do that, they would be taken off probation and continue on in the program. So that allows a student, if they perform badly in high school, wouldn't be out in terms of going on to college and proving that they can do it in college. So that's basically the outline of the GPA changes that we're proposing. The funding levels, we have in the past had 3 levels of funding. We've had full-time, three-quarter time, and half-time. And what we would propose to do is to instead change that to 2 levels. It would be full-time and less than full-time. So anything less than full-time would be funded at half of the full-time award. So rather than having three-quarter time in the middle and confusing things, that's the way we would go forward on that one. I noted in budget hearings and then since that time that we would be talking about considering resources as part of the scholarship award. And the reason that all these changes have become necessary is that the scholarship has become so much more competitive than it had been in the past. It had been very much...
I'm having difficulty hearing, and I'm getting signals from others that they're having some difficulty as well, so we could...
We could
Thank you.
pause for a question or anything like that?
Councilor Watts?
Thank you. So on the, I'm trying to get my arms around the $30,000 FAFSA.
Yes.
So if somebody makes more, if a family makes more than $30,000, they would be ineligible for funding?
No, that's not the case.
I haven't
I'll
done the
explain
FAFSA,
that.
so-
Yeah.
And then the other question I had was, which backup documentation will we not be requiring? Because I thought we kind of had minimal backup documentation as it was.
I can get to that too.
Okay.
Yep. Do we have any other questions before I
I
continue?
think if you'll proceed through
Okay.
that would be fine.
The considering resources, one thing that we plan to consider is the amount of Pell resources. The amount of resources vary from 0 to maybe $27.50 per semester in Pell. So we would start tiering our scholarship based on the amount of Pell resources that a student would have. So a student has $2,500 or more a semester in Pell, then we would fund them $500, bringing that to a $3,000 per semester. If they have Pell funding from $1,500 to $2,499, we would tier it at $1,000 a semester. Again, trying to approximate a certain amount, also considering the amount of resources they have or don't have. And then if they get Pell funding up to $1,500, we would continue at the full $2,000 a semester. So that's the idea on Pell funding.
As far as because I know one thing that happens is that they get a Pell grant and then we give them, something in addition to that, which then reduces their Pell grant. Is that not right?
I've heard that to be the
Sometimes.
case, and I've asked that, and I've been told no, that's not the case. So I do think what sometimes happens is that if we send the check to the school and it's their account has already been paid, sometimes they send the check back to us and don't send it to the student. We've had that issue arise too. Sometimes the student receives the money, sometimes we get the check back from the school based on their policy. It just varies.
That's interesting. I've heard that just numerous times from people. So.
But we can follow up to be sure. But each time I've asked, I've had that answer come back. So,
Councilor Jordan?
Melanie, so they have to get at least $1 worth of Pell funding in order to qualify for our scholarship?
no, that's not true.
So there
but
is
if they
a no
receive,
Pell column.
yeah, there's a no Pell column. Yeah,
Now,
but that is unchanged.
what's the no Pell amount?
2,000.
Okay.
2,000, and we are proposing a cap on income altogether, and that's on down here, and I'll get to that. But an overall cap, but otherwise it would be 2,000. So,
Councilor Hoskin?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I guess I'd be happy to defer the answer to when you're done, but one thing that I wondered is, as you guys came up with these policies and analyzed them, did you come up with some amount that you anticipated that this would, some number of students that would be ineligible if this policy were in place today? Because I'd be curious as to what sort of the value is on each of these policy judgments, so we can sort of determine, whether we think it's compelling or not. So, but
I can go over that very roughly because, of course, we did consider that during budget preparation time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is students on full room and board scholarships, meaning that all of their costs are paid. Sometimes they have some minimal costs that still must be paid by the student, and then we also wanted to consider transportation. So students that are attending, for instance, Haskell University, we would still fund them at $500 a semester, allowing them some transportation funds, but we wouldn't fund them at the entire $2,000 a semester as we have been. The next one is the one Councilor Watts asked about, which is the overall cap on eligibility based on income. The way the FAFSA works is that it considers your adjusted gross income, it considers the amount of, the number of people in the family, it considers how many members of the family are attending college at the same time, and factors it comes out with what's called an estimated family contribution, and that is a dollar amount. So what we would use is the FAFSA because we do want to consider all of those things. And the cap would be $30,000 estimated family contribution for that family. Now that equates to, since we don't think in terms of EFC, we think in terms of annual income, that would equate to a family of 3 with 1 college attendee in home with a 6-figure or more incomes, and that comes out to about $115,000, $118,000 a year. So that gives you some idea of the range we were looking at there. So again, if there are more people going to college in the home than that, they certainly would continue to be eligible, but this would put an overall cap on income eligibility. Any questions about that? Because it's a little bit, it's not as straightforward as the other ones.
And it says a family of 3. We're talking about 3 children in the family. Not
We're talking about 3 total.
3 total.
2
So
parents
one
and 1 child. Yes. 2 parents and 1 child, and assuming that 1 child is attending college. So if the one...
Sorry, but I need to speak. You would recognize.
Yes.
There's several things on here that I'm going to have to look at and go home and see what my people want. But I think it's a good start. But still, yet there's things on here that I don't really agree with. And I just saw this right now today. And so I'll probably get back this next month.
Yes.
Whatever I have on these scholarships.
Well, I appreciate having your input on this and anything else that...
Because I may end up making a motion to or not to.
I guess as we're going through this, I wanted to go back up to that number 1, that minimum grade point average, and ask you to consider something on this 3-point for graduate students. Of course, it's a 2-point to keep you in law school, and between 2.2 and 2.5 is where the majority of your law school classes are at. And they're graduate students. So if you keep that 3-point, you will have successfully cut out just about every Cherokee Indian that's going to law school. Law school is not like a regular graduate program. And so I would ask you to maybe consider adding to that line, and on the some of the professional schools, you're only going to have 10% of your class is going to be 3-point or above.
Well, we certainly took a look at the information and where our students currently sit and consider that. But
I will share that in... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think medical school, law school, some of those professional schools need to be treated just a little bit different than a regular graduate program. If you're going for your master's, say in business, then it's very typical that most of your students are going to be above a 3 point. But if you're in law school, and I'm not sure, but I kind of think medical school might be the same way, and I surely defer to others that, I don't know where Brad's at, but I certainly would defer to others on that. But it's a little bit different situation in those schools. And I certainly know it's a little bit different for law school.
I know that we don't currently have any law students on the directed studies program, but we do have several medical students, and the minimum on directed studies is 3.0.
Well, the minimum to stay in law school is 2 point.
Well, certainly the minimum to stay in any school is lower than 2.5.
Actually, in graduate programs, the minimum is 3.0.
Not in law school.
In any graduate program other than law or medicine.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
perhaps
I think we need
the
to add a
minimum is
little.
3.0, so I don't know why the minimum would be less in professions like that than it is in
Well,
others.
it
but,
just is. I'm just telling you that it is.
I'm not sure that's a good sign.
No, it's a good sign, because you'll find that the ones that are between 2.2 and 2.5 are ones that are making all the money. So,
That also may be problematic. Counselor Watts?
We'll certainly take a closer look at that.
I think if we're going to prioritize money, I understand why we would want to fund doctors. Why we would want to fund somebody who's just going to go make money off of us instead of the other, and there's a plethora of them, and we have a need for medical folks. I mean, we could prioritize it that way. I mean, that's, I mean, there's that too. I don't understand why we wouldn't want to prioritize where we actually have a need. I think we have how many applicants for law positions that then we're begging for people to apply for medical school. That's the other thing I think we should be considering, so, thank you.
Counselor Hoskins?
Lawyers contribute at least something to society. But I think the point's well taken, that we've got to look. I mean, it seems to me there's two things driving our scholarship program. One is the need to sort of develop the best and brightest to come back and work in the nation, for the nation, in the 14 counties, but also to give our people an opportunity to pursue their goals, and sometimes those goals are something other than medicine. So I think we got to be careful tiering this too much in terms of professions and things like that. It's good that we have the directed studies program so we can target some of those things, but I'd like to see more of a universal program. So I'm glad that's, and I know I've already made this point, but before these go into effect, and maybe they already have gone into effect, I really would like to see this breakdown that you're going to give us roughly, maybe in as precise terms as you can, the terms that you all dealt with it in, because I do wonder if some of these, how much value some of these brought to the equation. I mean, how much money did it save, and whether that's the right judgment call. But anyway, thank you, Mr.
I could suggest that since most graduate programs that are not in these professions that are being mentioned today are themselves going to cut somebody that's below a 3.0, that it could perhaps be reduced to accommodate these kinds of programs, and we could just leave it to the universities themselves to handle the graduate students in other disciplines, right, that are below a 3.0, because they'll get cut on that basis alone in other schools. So I would just throw that out anyway. Councilor Jordan, did you have
That would just be that we would leave it to the universities. If they were a member in good standing of their class, then they got to stay in school. And that's what I advocate. If the university thinks you're good enough to stay in school, then we ought to think you're good enough to stay in school.
at a graduate level.
On a graduate level.
Yeah, because we don't have the same standards for undergrad. Certainly.
Just a thought. Councilor Fulbright?
Well, I just had the same point that Councilor Jordan was making, because in the past, Dr. Horton always said if they were in graduate school in good standing with college, that was good enough for us. And I know how difficult it can be in medical school and law school when you've had a straight A college transcript from MSU and then you transfer into one of these programs where extremely difficult. And I just think it should be as long as they're in good standing with the college. That's my feelings on it. Thank you.
Okay, continuing on the
Oh, I'm
resident.
sorry, Counselor Fishing.
I just wanted to echo what Viv just said, because I watched my little sister, and I watched everybody in her class. We're looking at people, it's ACT is very minimum 30 when they go into school, folks. 30 will get you into the process. Once they get there, they're working 38 hours straight, sometimes 48. And I don't know how it is in law school, but I promise you, in med school, I watched Bobby go through it. It's something else, folks. And, you know, they say the 179th person in her class is called doctor. You know, that's the last person in her class is called doctor, folks. And if it's good enough for med school, I think it ought to be good enough for us. At the very least. And Chuck, I'm just going to comment on you. Her first semester, she took a class besides med that was called insurance. The second semester, they give her one called medicine and the law. Her third semester, she got one that was called why you need to be a Republican. If you're a doctor. I thought it was kind of funny, but every semester they threw something in with insurance or the law in her med class.
It seems like those two professions get closer and closer anymore. Thank you for the comments on that. The next item about residency for Pell eligible students, we have, as we've discussed, we haven't had a residency requirement for Pell eligible, and we're proposing to leave that as it is for Pell eligible students. Non-Pell eligibles we only fund, however, within the 14 counties and the contiguous counties. So we would leave that as it is. We would have a probation process, we would have a suspension process, and at any time a student's notified they're going to be in probation, say for a GPA requirement, they have the ability to appeal that. And so, or they'd have the ability to appeal a denial. And we have specific time frames laid out, as we have not had in the past, but a specific process for that a student may appeal within a certain amount of time of the adverse decision and present their circumstances so that they can be considered for reconsideration. So that's providing just for a formal appeal that we haven't done before.
Counselor Baker?
And who do they appeal to?
They appeal to higher education. They appeal to the Education Services Group. And the way that we have done that in the past is had the deciding staffer that made the original decision provide the information to a wider committee of folks, including myself, to review that case, the situation presented, and then issue a decision that's final for our group.
And I'll just state, I recently had a constituent that was on a directed studies program that did appeal and successfully got a reversal from higher ed.
Well, I just didn't know if it would be like Dr. Martin and Mr. Maines or along with you or if it was
Who we've had in the past.
The staff that made the decision.
If this is going to be a more formalized decision, more formalized process, we need to put together an appeal committee because it's been somewhat of an ad hoc committee because we didn't have a process. So this will set out a formalized process for that. So I would put together an appeal committee of people that would include myself, but not just my subordinates, to review those cases because sometimes students do have extenuating circumstances that should be considered. But not being fair to everyone is not saying you have an appeal process. And just certain students send letters and then certain don't know that they can appeal. So the self-help component, we've always had a self-help, or I say always, we have for some time had a self-help component requiring community service of an amount of $100 per hour. So they perform 1 hour of community service for every $100 of scholarship. What we've done is broaden that a bit to include mentorship programs, to include rookie bridge camp programs, and that sort of thing, preparing them to preparing them for college or helping them being retained in college. So we've extended that a little bit beyond just service programs into what we think are beneficial activities that will help them in their college career. We're also trying to give more emphasis to Cherokee organizations in that, so that we notify them of what Cherokee organizations are out there that they can work with to perform their community service.
I might also suggest here that, just for consideration, that if they enroll in Native American Studies courses or American Indian Studies courses, should their university have such courses, that be counted, because we, teaching in those departments myself, I know that the frustrating thing is that we know that we have large populations of Native students on the campus, but how many of them are actually ever involved in those particular departments is minimal. And I think that kind of involvement can really build identity, it can really build investment on the part of individuals.
That's a very good point. We experimented a bit this past year with the Sequoia series of seminars here at NSU, because I attended one of them, and there was probably less than 5 NSU students in the room. I don't know if any of them were our scholarship recipients or not, but we have nearly 700 at the university, and they didn't attend a 2-day workshop that was attended by Wilma Mankiller, and organized by her. So it was really disappointing to see the very low participation. So what we did was we offered they could get credit on their community service by attending the next workshop, which was in October. And I know that I think it was about 70 of our scholarship recipients attended that in order to get the community service credit. So I think it does have, a win-win factor to it. So we will include that in the self-help component. Okay, the next item is proprietary institutions, and these are for-profit universities that typically charge a great deal per hour for their university, for their college credit, and then also don't typically provide credits that can be easily transferred to another university. And because of those things, we've just determined we've had a few students in those programs, and it's not very beneficial to the students in our view. And so that is why we're proposing to change that to not fund for-profit universities. We would continue to fund private universities, however, as long as they're not for-profit.
So you're not saying you won't provide scholarships to children that go to TU, right?
That's right. We would continue to fund TU.
Councilor Fishing-Hawk, did you have your hand up also? Or?
No, I was asking Tom, why is TU different?
Okay.
Other changes that you may be less interested in, but I think are also important for the program and our efficiency, is that we're moving to a paperless system where we're going to scan all of the applications and have them in a paperless system and get rid of the huge filing system. If you've ever been to higher ed and seen the filing system, it encompasses an entire room, so we hope to eliminate some workload there. Reducing the amount of backup documentation. This is to prevent redundancy, the needless copying of items that students have to do in order to qualify for a scholarship. And an example is we were having them copy their CDIB and their citizenship card and attach it to their application and send it in to us. We know who is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, so I think if we get their application, it's easy enough for us to verify that they are a citizen of the Cherokee Nation without asking them to copy documents. And in fact, we were denying students based on if they attached the copy or they did not attach the copy. So those types of things we're streamlining. Also, we want to increase our communication with students. Sometimes they don't hear from us all year until it's time for application, or we need something from them. So we plan various ways to increase communication, and we have some proposals out there for some pretty advanced ways to do that. We'd like to create cohorts. We'd like to create virtual cohorts so that students can talk to one another as well, because we know that will increase their retention in college. Also, we're going to start accepting email applications. We had not accepted that in the past. even if they had scanned every original document and sent it to us and we had a perfect copy of it, we still wouldn't accept that. And so that is one thing we are also going to change. We're going to accept complete email applications. We eventually want to go to an online application that once it's inputted online would automatically be in our database. We are not at that point yet, but we will start accepting email applications with this coming cycle. And the other thing is that now that we have the College Resource Center open, and we have an application period that will open in March, what we had to do last year is if someone did not have a complete application when they walked in the door, we didn't accept that from them because we didn't want to give them false hope that we were going to be able to fund them when it was not a complete application on the last day of the application cycle. What our goal is this time is that no one will leave without having a completed application, and that means if someone needs a FAFSA completed and they can finish that at that computer over there, they can walk over to that computer over there, finish their FAFSA, print out the confirmation, give it to us, and we can finish their application. If they needed an acceptance letter from a university and they haven't filled out their application yet, those types of things that they can get. They need their transcripts and they can download it and print it for us. They can do it right there on site as opposed to leaving without having completed their application. And so those are customer service things that certainly we can and will continue to improve upon. And then the other thing that we previously talked about was the mid-year application process. That we want to open up a mid-year application process so that students entering or re-entering in spring would have the opportunity to do that, because currently they do not. If you don't get in from March to June, you're out for an entire year. So we'd like to change that as well. And then just touching on Counselor Hoskins' comment or question about the value placed on each of these policy changes. Certainly we valued them in terms of dollars because we needed to see how they impacted the budget one way or the other on each of these changes. We can get specific numbers to you in terms of looking at our current student population and how these policy changes would be applied, what numbers then result from that. For example, we would know how many students would exceed the income eligibility cap. We would be able to give you a number that would say, this number of students would currently not meet that eligibility requirement. We know how many students are eligible for Pell, and we know based on their EFC what level of Pell they're getting. So we could tell you, for example, how many of them are getting 2,500 or more in Pell. So we can value for you many if not all of these policy changes. So we can do that and get it back to you very shortly.
Councilor Jordan.
Would you be so kind as to do that for us?
Certainly.
Before the next meeting?
We can do that.
Not like a day or two before, but...
We'll shoot for further before the first meeting.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Councilor Hoskins.
And just generally, are these changes, do they accomplish the goal of serving the people we anticipate this next year the same number, or are we changing this enough that we're actually going to serve more than we hadn't served before, or what's the real goal here?
The goal is twofold. One, to be able to continue to serve the ones that meet this eligibility requirement into the future, but also accommodate growth. And the last estimates I made on growth are approximately 10% a year. And so, yes, it is our goal to be able to serve an increasing population of students at the same time that we take care of the competition within, so to speak, the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Crittenden.
Thank you. Melanie, now all of these are changes to our current policy. Is this true?
No. I've just outlined highlights that I thought you all might be interested in. As I pointed out, the residency requirement is not a change. That is status quo.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I thought I heard you say that earlier. So, and then we were talking about all these changes, and I'm thinking,
Right. We kind of referred to that sheet as changes.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Fulbright.
Thank you. I see this as in a total different perspective in the way you phrase it. you're saying it's to serve more, and I see it as a way to serve less and to cut the numbers down and to save money. There's two ways to look at it. I mean, can we continue on at $10 million a year, or are these things just being put in there to weed people out? That's my question. I don't see it as expanding it. I see it as saving money, which we may need to do, but I don't look at it the same way as you present it. So, thank you.
With all the respect to Councilor Fulbright, it is twofold. It is to control costs in a way. It's also to provide opportunity for students that have the most likelihood of success. But we all know that funding in and of itself isn't going to mean success for a student. So that's why we also have to plan a lot of other things like college preparedness and retention strategies to ensure these, or at least give them the best opportunity for success. So it's accommodating a growing application pool within a budget constraint and increasing competition for the same amount of money. And so which students have the best likelihood of success and how can we get them there? I think that's the way we've been looking at it.
Are there other questions?
Just a comment, if I may. I tend to agree with Janelle. I think this is not quite going to work the way you have presented it. I believe it's probably going to exclude a number of students that probably would have went on through school had we given them that helping hand, which it appears we're not going to be doing. I mean, it wasn't 5 minutes before this meeting that I got a call from a constituent that was concerned that we were considering changes. And little did I know, he apparently knew a lot more from what he'd heard on the street than what we'd heard through these meetings. And I'm somewhat put out by that. His concern was Grade Point, and my concern is Grade Point. His concern was taking care of students outside the 14 counties, and my concern is taking care of students that fall outside the 14 counties. There's a lot of things on here. I'm like Mr. Thornton. I think I want to evaluate this and talk to the people it's going to affect. And I think as a council, we need to step up to the plate and be involved in some of these policy changes concerning education, which is one of the biggest issues out there today amongst our people, is getting their kids educated, giving them a chance to do something better than maybe what their parents were able to do with the level of education that they had. So this is something that I'm not going to take lightly, and I want to discuss it some more, and I want to, if we've got till March, we need to take right up till March, and we need to step up to the plate and be a part of this process. And that's all I have to say.
Councilor Cobb.
I'd just like to make a comment. I don't disagree with Councilor Fulbright and Councilor Jordan, but I also don't disagree with Secretary of State. I think the problem here is there's always a balancing act between where does giving someone a chance trump personal responsibility and individual wherewithal. It is true that there are instances where kids just need a foothold. They need to get around people that are where they want to be. And I think the problem of balancing act is to find those. You know, I don't, in the percentage wise of those kids that go on to college and do well, I don't know what the percentage of that is. It's probably a little bit lower, but at some point there's got to be some personal responsibility and some individual, you know, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I would hope that you always keep an eye on how do we better balance that, because I do believe there are some kids that just need some direction. They don't have a foundation. If you can get them around that foundation, the light goes on and they're, oh, but they may not have the grade point coming out of high school. But at the same time, you can't just, there's got to be some personal responsibility there, and that's a tough balancing act, and I appreciate y'all putting the time in on that. So, thank you.
I would just echo this because I'm coming at this from the other side, perhaps, as someone in academia who's the professor on the other side of it, and I see students who are coming into classes. If you're below a 2.5, you're not making a real serious effort. I mean, you may be thrown by new circumstances or something for a semester or two, but this is not an unreasonable level to set for funding. It's very reasonable, I think, to be asking for this, and it's not hard to meet. You know, if someone does, as Councilor Cobb says, apply the effort that it really requires to become an educated person and a professional person, and to have that kind of success in your life. And I don't think it's unreasonable for us to state that we have those kinds of expectations of our people and our students. So I would just throw that in there, I guess, as long as we're... Councilor Fulbright.
Yes, thank you. I don't know exactly how to word this in a polite way, but I almost totally disagree with you. I taught at a small junior college down at Salisbury called Carl Albert, and it was the first step for some of these people from Adair and Sequoia County that it was difficult for them, and they were doing good if they could maintain a 2.0. And education is so important. When I taught down there, I told them, I said, this college is the greatest thing that ever happened to Sequoia County, except maybe for rural electrification back in 1947. And we recently, Dr. Webb is the president down there, and he announced an agreement with Dr. Betts for the hours to be compatible so they wouldn't lose anything when they transferred. That school has made such an impact on Adair and Sequoia County of getting people better educated, better jobs. The whole 14 counties are underemployed because they're undereducated. And if we can give some poor Cherokee student a start, and I am not in favor of raising it to 2.5. Where you teach may be totally different as to the real Cherokee Nation down where I taught. That's all I have to say.
Councilor Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think I'd asked this at an earlier meeting, and Todd, I guess I'd direct it back to you just to refresh my memory, but the statute that creates this program is pretty broadly worded. I mean, because what I'm wondering is, I think it's the administration's position, they have full discretion to change these policies, and maybe it's an open question, I mean, depending on what the statute says. So I'm wondering, number one, at our next meeting, we're going to get some more information on these changes. Could you also just bring us a copy of the statute, and if you could maybe speak to what you remember of it right now in terms of is it broadly worded?
Well, I would, from what I remember, the statute, it is broadly worded in most statutes as to the create a program, et cetera, and obviously it's up to the administration to administer that program. However, as you know, that the council has every right to make a law as detailed as need be to promote the intentions of the council itself. I've used this phrase before. If the council passes a law that says go buy 12 purple cows, well, the administration of that act is to go buy 12 purple cows. So I will revisit the statute and give you a report on it.
Thank you. Because, Madam Chairman, to the extent any of us are troubled by any of these, there's really two questions. One, does the statute really prevent these kind of changes from going into place? If the answer to that is yes, then we have to have a long discussion with the administration about that. If the answer is no, then the question is, does the committee want to block these legislatively, which is certainly within our realm to do. And I'm not suggesting we block any or all of them. I'm just saying that probably needs to be the discussion that the committee needs to have soon, because these, and I don't want to put words in the Secretary's mouth, but these changes are definitely going to affect March 2011. That's the end of the story as far as the administration is concerned.
Is the path we are currently headed down.
Okay. All right. And I
with some consideration of the comments I've gotten here today, and we'll take those back and
Okay, so, thank you, Madam Chair.
I have 3 more people right now, and I'm going to allow them to speak, and we are running into the next committee's time.
I
We still have
apologize.
3 reports to hear,
monopolizing.
so I'm going to hear from the 3 that I already had listed, and then I'm going to cut this short. So Councilor Thornton, you were...
Yeah, so, you know what, I don't agree with this. Not with all of it, but I do agree with some of yours. But, you know, we take 4-point students, 4.2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and at the end of the year, we give each one of those students $1,000 that's valedictorian celebratory at the school, high school. And then they'll go to college, they'll get everything paid for most of the time at OU or wherever they want to go. But still yet, that $2,000 a semester is helping those students because they still have to buy gas and clothes and shoes and whatever they need. And that's also with our other students. But I know students that have had a 3.0, and maybe the first 2 semesters in college they might have went 2.3 or 2.2, or 2.0, and that puts them ineligible in this. And I don't agree with it. I think they need at least a semester to you know, prepare themselves and get their mind off of partying and go to work, you know. And you know as well as I know that's what's happening. And usually the ones are weeded out after a semester. But they either make up their mind to hit it and get after it, or they make up their mind to leave. You take a family that has a husband and wife, and they make $40,000 a year. I'm telling you what, they're struggling. There's no doubt about it. And then you take a single person that has a child in school that's making $30,000 or less a year, and they're dang sure struggling. I guarantee you that. So there's stuff in here that I really think needs to be looked at. I'm not completely against everything here, but there's some of the things that I think we really need to sit down and talk about. And that's the way I feel. Thank you.
Madam Chair? I just want to clarify a couple of items. The $30,000 is not income each year, but it is the FAFSA estimated family contribution, which is based on income, but $30,000 for EFC equates to about $115,000, $118,000 a year for a family of 3 with 1 student. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not $30,000 a year income. Because that's something we specifically looked at. If 2 teachers are in the household, they have a child, even if they're employed full-time, that makes it rough on sending that child to college. So we wanted to make sure to get that up there to a significant level if we were going to propose any type of cap. And then what was the second question you had? Oh, the GPA. If a student falls below the minimum GPA, they will have an additional semester to pull that up. So we would put them on probation, fund them another semester, and allow them the opportunity to bring that up. So I just wanted to clarify those couple of things for you.
Okay, then they won't be denied.
Not immediately.
Councilor Jordan.
If you could, when you start your application process, could you add a question? I would like to know how many of the students that are applying for our scholarships are first generation trying to go to college.
Okay.
Because we were talking about personal responsibility with I think Councilor Cobb brought it up, and not leaving behind those students that need that little extra help. The first generation that tries to go to college is the hardest. I mean, after that, second, third generation, there's an expectation set in that family. But the first generation that comes out of high school, and they're the first ones in their family to try to go to school, there's the ones that I hope we're not going to leave behind with these new rules. So I would like to see on that application, let's find out, are they the first ones of their family to ever try to go to college? Because those are the ones that are going to need some extra assistance. And those are the ones that maybe we need to go the extra mile for, because if we can get them over the hump, they may not even come back second, third, and fourth generation and need our help. And I think you'll find it's going to be in about 5 counties that you're going to see a lot of first generation kids trying to go to school.
Councilor Fishingham.
Yeah, I was kind of echoing what she said. You know, the heart of Cherokee Nation, your Adair, Sequoia, Delaware, Maize County, Cherokee County. I have moms and dads with 3 or 4 kids living with, you know, granny and grandparents. And, you know, their dad caught chickens and dropped out of school in 5th grade, and the mother didn't go to school, and she's working at the nursing home doing laundry. And, you know, the chances are she had her first kid at 14 or 15. And then that oldest kid is staying at home raising the younger kids. They're doing their laundry, they're disciplining them, they're fixing dinner because, you know, dad may be out drinking, mom may be out drinking, you know. And that's what we have in our counties. You know, we have kids that don't want to go to school maybe because they don't have clothes, folks. You know, it's not because they're irresponsible. I'm glad, Julia, you had it better than my people had it. I mean, that is the story of America. You want better for your kids than you want it for yourself. You know, and I hope we're not just shooting some of these people in the foot because we're afraid somebody may sneak by and make $1,000 off the nation that shouldn't, so we're penalizing everybody else. You know, some people need to stop and think about that for a while. To me, a good day in the morning is when I get up and I know, or at the end of the day when I know I have done something for someone that will never be able to repay me. And I think that's what we need to start thinking about. That is a good day, folks.
I think we're finished.
Thank you. Next, we have Head Start and Verna Thompson. Merry Christmas, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on the written report.
Are there questions? Councilor Jordan?
Verna, how are we doing on our student population? Are you already maxed out on your number of students that you can take for this year?
Yeah, we're full.
And what's that number that you now have?
680 for Head Start and 162 regular early Head Start slots and 48 expansion ARA slots that are kind of up in the air, as you know, with the ARA funding. So,
and you have a waiting list for both groups?
Yes.
It's a very popular program, isn't it?
Yes, especially early Head Start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the new leadership group and Todd Enlow. And thank you for your patience.
Told Melanie I'd get her back for that. Good afternoon. I'm here. Hopefully you guys received our report, but I'm here to answer any questions, and I have a few announcements as well. If you guys have any questions, I'll take those.
Councilor Fishingham.
I asked about the exit interviews. Are you gathering information on that?
Yes, I talked to Michael Otello. Their staff started doing exit interviews again in a formal process, probably about 6 months ago, and he showed me some of the preliminary data that they've collected, and it coincides with what we found in our engagement surveys, but we'd like to collect a few more months worth of data and then bring it back and share it with you at a future meeting.
Okay, the Christmas party Thursday, where's it going to be at?
Christmas party Thursday.
Christmas party and dinner for the students, parent directors.
I don't even recall.
Can
I email you back on that?
It's on your initiative. It's this Thursday.
Oh, it's at, I'm trying to remember if we're having that. Typically, we've held it at the Glass Community Building at the Housing Authority, and I can't remember off the top of my head if that's where it's going to be again this year or not. Can I double check on that and get back with you?
Yeah, you can send it to the whole
Sure.
council in case they want to attend.
I sure will.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something on your report, Tom. Here, could you go over the hires with us that you have attached to your report?
That is something we started analyzing through our new hiring orientation. It's basically one of the things that we are trying to measure is our Cherokee hires. So every time we have the opportunity to hire, we're trying to measure how many times are we hiring a Cherokee, other Native American, or non-Native employee. Yeah, in the whole government. And so basically that's just a breakdown of by each week what came through orientation. So I believe based on that, the rough amount would be about 86% is our average of Cherokee hire. Right now our total employee population is about right around 80 to 81%. So we are on an uptick on that. So it's one of the things we are trying to watch in administration and remind ourselves of that every time we get an opportunity, and see if there's gaps, if we don't have qualified Cherokee applicants, things that we can send back to Education and Career Services and say we need to go focus on X. So we're watching that. So that's what that little blurb is. And that comes
Okay,
out.
I was wanting to know about that, because I remember I was looking at Diane Kelly's, some stuff that I had requested from her and Daryl and all of them, and it was showing like nurses or radio talk, different areas in the health field, and it showed how many we put through school and then how many we actually turned around and hired. Can you look at that, see if something can be done? Because we're educating them and we're hollering these blanks ain't being filled, but then we don't even turn around and hire them.
Yep, that's one of the things we're trying to measure, so that we make sure that we connect the dots on that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Cobb?
I'm just looking on one of these pages here about the CDs, a brochure packet to Cracker Barrel, and you've been in touch with, when did you contact Walmart about CD sales for the?
It was within the last 30 days. It was right around right before Thanksgiving.
I'm just curious, as visible as Walmart was at the national holiday, I would hope that they would.
Yeah, we have a couple of contacts at Walmart, and I'm excited about the opportunity with Cracker Barrel as well. I think that will be a good market and a great fit for them, and I think it's a good way for us to distribute that and hit a very one of our target markets, obviously through the Cracker Barrel, but Walmart is interested in doing that as well.
Good, thank you.
Councilor Jordan?
Yes, Todd, on that last page where it's titled Cherokee Citizens Hired during the month of, would you care to maybe add a line, and where we've hired a non-Cherokee, would you let us know if they were the only applicants that applied? What I'm really looking for is, are we saying no Cherokees applied for that position? If you could somehow tweak your form here so that you could add that information,
I
that'd be
can't
very
tell you
helpful.
with the hiring process, that is one of the things. If you select a non-Cherokee, HR will ask you to justify that, and so it's not just automatic. So they keep that search out. But I'll add that.
If you could add that information, it would certainly be helpful. Thank you very much.
Others?
Just one question, like on the last sheet on 11-2, 10 Cherokees and total hired was 13. Now, could some of those have been other native tribes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I hope to break out in the future, so we can show other tribes. Okay, some quick announcements. Hopefully you have received some invitations for these, but I wanted to reinforce them. The youth choir tryouts for new members is January 4th. They can contact Kathy Sierra or Mary Kay or call into our hotline. And then on January the 8th, our youth council, the new youth council that's been selected, will be sworn into their new offices, and we will thank our outgoing youth council members. That's January the 8th. That's a Saturday at 10 o'clock, and it'll be held in the council chambers. January the 29th, we are having a night with the Cherokee Ambassadors, and this is a dinner banquet fundraiser, and it's a night that we are going to introduce you to all the Miss Cherokee, Junior Miss, Little Miss, Youth Choir, and the Youth Council, and it's a formal way for us to get together and you guys to discover who they are, but it's also a way for them to be introduced to you. And so please mark that on your calendar. You should have already received or be receiving your invitation. And I'd like to recognize Jackie Eagle, who is our current Junior Miss Cherokee. On the 7th of December, she was recognized by the Oklahoma Council for Indian Education as the Indian Student of the Year. So she was recognized for that. And last but not least, Baron Ofield, who's an intern who's ridden the bike ride for the last 2 years, has been inspired by Brian Jackson, and he is going for his first world record attempt in the Walmart parking lot of Tahlequah, Oklahoma, store number 10 on Thursday, starting at 1 o'clock. He will push a 2,000-pound car more than 27 miles in a 24-hour period. And he is also trying to raise attention and awareness for the Angel Tree, so he will be taking donations, either monetary or toys during that time. So he'll be starting at 1 o'clock on Thursday, going 24 hours and attempting to break the 27-mile mark, pushing a car. So come by and wish him luck. And wish him luck. Several people. He asked me if I would, and I said, well, I'll go on an extensive diet to make sure I drop as much weight as possible. So that's all I had. Thank you.
And next we have the quarterly report from Cultural Tourism, and Molly Jarvis is here. And again, thank you also for your patience.
Good afternoon. Again, you have the report, and but I'll just touch on a few highlights, and if there are any questions. It's been extremely busy in the Cultural Tourism Department since the last time we were here, and I do have Steve Rush and Travis Owens with me in case there are any questions for them. But last week we held the groundbreaking for Ross School, or Rural School 51. That will be a museum dedicated to Chief John Ross out by Ross Cemetery, and received some very nice coverage, media coverage for that groundbreaking. We continue to see about 500 to 600 people through the Welcome Center that we have in Kansas, Oklahoma on Highway 412. And just a note, I think we've mentioned this already, but we're in the process of negotiating with the state to assume management and the site at the Welcome Center that's in Catoosa. It's at 163rd East Avenue. So it'll be a similar setup there, but we're also planning to house all of our cultural tourism staff in that building. So we would really sell our tours from that location, launch them. The bus can park in that parking lot, turn around there. We can pull in motor coaches at that site. So I think it'll be a very nice storefront for us. We began work on restoration of the prison downtown here in Tahlequah this week, so you'll start to see some construction activity there. We are continuing the artwork consignment at all of our locations, so if you have constituents who are artists and are interested, there's a process to follow. I think there's some more information on the second page of the report, but it's been very successful so far, and we actually saw a great increase in sales, sales at the Cherokee Art Gallery at the Hard Rock in October. We had about 8,000 in sales for that month, which is a lot considering we've typically done between about 200 and 500. So I think people are seeing that the inventory's fresh. We're getting new pieces through there, so I think that consignment program is helping us a lot. Since the last time we were here, we took the tour group out to Cherokee, North Carolina in the Fall Festival, and we got very good feedback on that and are planning to do that again, or more frequently, I guess, through the year, other trips like that. We attended the Governor's Conference on Tourism, where the Redbud Awards are given out. Those are awards across the state in the tourism industry, and the program was awarded 4 awards. One was a Redbud Award, which is the top one for our large brochure that has the OCO on it. We've received 3 merit awards, and one of those included Tourism Organization of the Year. So very proud to bring that back to us here. We're working on a new e-commerce site for all of our retail where you can buy Cherokee merchandise. So we will launch that. We're hoping to in the next few weeks. We wanted it up by Christmas, but just haven't been able to get the site finished. So you'll be able to purchase any of the items from our gift shop in addition to some other items on our Cherokee Nation gift shop site. We have about 38 tours already booked for fiscal year 2011. So excited that we're getting the ball rolling already, and we've got a lot of groups in the queue. And again, back to the sales for October, it was a very busy month for us. This has been our highest sales month ever for group tours, in addition to sales in the gallery, which we did about $67,000 in group tours just in the month of October. So that was a big boost to our sales numbers there. And I think that's most of the highlights since the last time, unless there are questions for me or the group.
Councilor Dargan?
Well, I'd like to visit with you in just a second.
Okay.
Good question. Councilor Fishing.
Yeah, I feel like a report on how much we've spent on cultural tourism.
Okay.
And when it's going to break even.
Okay, we can prepare that and bring that next time. Is that fast enough, or would you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have old business and new business, and there is none pending. And the next meeting will be Monday, January 10th at 3 p.m. I want to apologize to Chairman Snell for the impeding on the next committee meeting so badly today, but it was a good discussion, I think, so.
Move for
Thank you.
adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?